vitthalā, vitthalā, pānduranga, vitthalā, 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 pandurinadā, vitthalā, 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 purandara, vitthalā, 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 pānduranga, vitthalā, 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 pandurinadā, vitthalā, 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 purandara, vitthalā. Namaskara, VasanthiMā Swami Devare. Dear friends, revealing shocking inner secrets in English of pāndu-rangā, vitthalā, purandara-dāsā that we can practically benefit from right away. To set the apt backdrop for these major Wikileaks, we begin this week's peaks before peaks with VasanthiMā offering just two of the 700 odd surviving songs from amongst 475,000 plus creations of the patriarch or pitā-mahā or tata of carnātic music, as mentioned in one of his own songs in dedication to his guru vyāsatīrthā, whom we rediscovered in great detail just a fortnight back, while providing an advaitic interpretation to Krsnā ni begane bāro. That Krsnā is right inside us, we saw that. That great guru vyāsatīrthā in turn had complimented his own protégé as dāsan-endare purandara-dāsān-ayyā. That means, if at all there is a dāsā, it has to be purandara-dāsā. The default value for a dāsā is purandara-dāsā. Such an enormous praise coming from a guru in his own lifetime for his own disciple is indeed a rare honor. It's usually the disciples who praise the guru. Well, Vyāsatīrthā had very similar situation too, his guru praising him, and now here is he praising his protégé. It's there in their guru parampara. VasanthiMā's offerings today are a simple yet power-packed Sanskrit gītam, kamala-ja-dala, followed by an endearing kannadā plea, mādo, mādo, both in the most popular and auspicious kalyani melody. In this context, it ought to be mentioned that for any song, raga or shruti or melody is the mother, and thala or laya or rhythm is the father, while sahityam, which is the only thing that I know, or lyrics, is the guru. Taking this further, the genetic pool for the song is the saptaswara, emanating from the big bang of Samaveda. Yes, Rigveda in most of its mantras has just 3 swaras. Yajurveda, be it Krishna Yajurveda or Shukla Yajurveda, has 5 swaras. But Samaveda has 7 swaras and is the source of Garhara Priya Ragam, and then eventually the 72 Melakarta Ragas, of which today's Kalyani is one as well. It is the 65th. Well, those who can't wait to hear the breaking news in English may feel free to forward to the 10th or maybe let's say 13th minute of this video and enjoy this spicy dessert, which many of my friends with sweet tooth prefer to have first. But do come back to VasanthiMā's rendering of the main course later to partake of the full course meal as a package deal. அம்மாவென்றழைக்காத உயிரில்லையே.
kamala-ja-dala விமல-சூனயன கரிவரத கருணாபுதேயே கருண ஜலதே kamala காந்தம் கேசி நரகா சூரவிபேதன வரத வேலா சூரபுரோத்தம குசும சரதே kamala காந்தம். ದಯಮಾಡೋ ರಂಗ ದಯಮಾಡೋ ದಯಮಾಡೋ ರಂಗ ದಯಮಾಡೋ ದಯಮಾಡೋ ನಿನ್ನ ದಾಸನು ನಾನೆಂದು ದಯಮಾಡೋ ರಂಗ ದಯಮಾಡು ದಯಮಾಡೋ ನಿನ್ನ ದಾಸನು ನಾನೆಂದು ದಯಮಾಡೋ ರಂಗ ದಯಮಾಡು ಹಲವು ಕಾಲದಿ ನಿನ್ನ ಅಂಬಲಯನಗೆ ಹಲವು ಕಾಲದಿ ನಿನ್ನ ಅಂಬಲಯನಗೆ ಒಲಿದು ಪಾಲಿಸಬೇಕು ವಾರಿ ಜನನೀನೇ ಒಲಿದು ಪಾಲಿಸಬೇಕು ವಾರಿ ಜನನೀನೇ ದಯಮಾಡೋ ರಂಗ ದಯಮಾಡು ದಯಮಾಡೋ ನಿನ್ನ ದಾಸನು ನಾನಿಂದು ದಯಮಾಡೋ ರಂಗ ದಯಮಾಡು ಈಗ ಪರಗತಿ ನೀನೆ ಇಂದಿರ ರಮಣ ಈಗ ಪರಗತಿ ನೀನೆ ಇಂದಿರ ರಮಣ ಸಗಯ ನಿನ್ನದೇ ತೋರಿ ಸರ್ವದಾ ಕರುಣಾ ಈಗ ಪರಗತಿ ನೀನೆ ಇಂದಿರ ರಮಣ ಸಗಯ ನಿನ್ನದೇ ತೋರಿ ಸರ್ವದಾ ಕರುಣಾ ಕರಿರಾಜವರದನೆ ಕರಿರಾಜ ವರದನೆ ಕಾಮಿತ ಫಲದಾನೆ ಕರಿರಾಜವರದನೆ ಕಾಮಿತ ಫಲದನೆ ಪುರಂದರ ವಿಠಲನೆ ಹರಿ ಸರ್ವಸೋಮಾ ಪುರಂದರ ವಿಠಲನೆ ಹರಿ ಸರ್ವಭೌಮಾ ದಯಮಾಡೋ ರಂಗ ದಯಮಾಡು ದಯಮಾಡೋ ನಿನ್ನ ದಾಸನು ನಾನೆಂದು ದಯಮಾಡೋ ರಂಗ ದಯಮಾಡು
HDR அம்மாவென்றழைக்காத உயிரில்லையே. What an enrapturing voice of KJ Yesudas in the Superstars Mannan. The same Yesudas has sung another super hit song, Kalaivaniye, in the same ragam in the movie Sindhu Bhairavi 2. S.P. Balasubramaniam has done a few. Isn't an exception either, with songs like Vandal Mahalakshmiye in Uyarnda Ullam. This unique ragam with all higher notes has also led to Rag Yaman Kalyan in Hindustani music. Very popular as a raga to start a concert with, or for elaboration, alapana. Kalyani has been profusely used by many composers and performers over the ages, both the traditional and filmy ones. Apart from the two songs sung by you today, VasanthiMā, Purandara-dāsā himself has composed many more songs in Kalyani Ragam, such as Nambi Kettavarillavo and Kallu Sakkare Kolliro. That means those who trust have never failed. And the other song, Buy Sweet Candy. And when he refers to sweet candy, it's of course the Lord or the Lord's name. He even sings Ramanama Payasakke, but of course that's in a different ragam. That is For Rama's name as the payasam, or the sweet dessert, Krishna's name is the sweetener, sugar. Get set for the wisdom treasure hunt with your co-yatri, yours truly. Welcome back. Sounds can be deceptive. First of all, we humans, even with perfect hearing, can hear only from about 20 hertz to about 20 kilohertz frequencies of sound. Light in general and colors in particular are even more deceptive, and there are many layers and levels of this deception. What seems black is actually white inherently, and what seems white is black inherently. This is because we observers end up seeing only what an object reflects away and not what it absorbs into itself. Something which is all inclusive by absorbing all that falls on into itself is ironically termed black. Hence the concept of a black hole. Equally ironic is the case of Mr. White, too. While black story is understood at least through a black hole, there's no such thing as a white hole. White is actually the color which prefers solitude by reflecting away everything that comes its way, absorbing nothing onto itself. Yet, in this illusory world of so-called science, white is thought to be a combination of all colors, while black is imagined to be devoid of all light. Well, one can't get further away from the truth, or so it seems. Because the light visible to humans is a negligibly small fraction of the entire electromagnetic spectrum, straddling between tiny yet fleeting gamma rays at one end of the spectrum, 10 power 24 hertz, way beyond our violets and ultraviolets that we can ever see or experience, even without the ozone layer. This is on the one hand. And thousands of picometers on the other hand, to massive yet drowsily long radio waves at the other end. Approximately 1 hertz, 1 per second, and lakhs of kilometers, not meters, lakhs of kilometers in wavelength, way beyond our reds and infrareds too, the remote controls there. Despite this, the wink and you miss visible spectrum creates so much of magic in our lives. To unravel the secrets of pāndu-rangā, vitthalā, and purandara-dāsā that we can practically benefit from right away, we need to estimate the significance of their names and how they relate to us here and now, and not in some far away imaginary place Vaikunta, Goloka, paradise, Jannat, heaven, at some distant future instant of time. Let us begin with Ranga, which is the colorful stage or theater for the entire play of our life itself. While Pandu means white. So Pāndu-rangā, Pandu white, Ranga colorful stage, Pāndu-rangā is the rainbow unleashed as a drama on stage, heading back to its deceptive source, or should I say sink, of one whiteness, everythingness, or Vishnu. Or should I say its corollary, blackness, nothingness, or Shiva. That's a thought for you. Go deep into yourself and unravel this mystery. I can only take you thus far in your inner journey. The rest of it you have to cover yourself. Extrapolating our etymological exploration to the composer too, Purandara. Yes, I'm breaking his name, Purandara, as Purandara is a destroyer, Dhara, of cities, Pura. Sounding bewildering for a man so great and kind, at least in the second half of his life, 40 plus. Well, for this, we need to recognize that cities essentially mean bounded, limited regions, despite the expansions which happen like in cities like Bangalore. Still, they remain bounded, limited. There are municipal boundaries, corporate boundaries. For example, we call our shrinking world, in a very fond sense, as a global village, well connected. Yes, global village, not a global city, mind you. Because city means constricted, village means expansive, forest means expansive, naturally expansive. Of course, man can involve in deforestation and reduce a forest size too, but naturally, these are things which are all encompassing, unlike cities. So city means boundary or limit, constriction, and dhara means destroying that. So Purandara, the destroyer of cities, is essentially a destroyer of boundaries, which are anyway not existent. These are imaginary boundaries that we have created. Birds fly across national borders without passports and visas. So Purandara is essentially a destroyer not of cities per se, but of boundaries and limitations. Even called Shiva as Tripurantaka, the demolisher of the boundaries of 3 cities. The inner, outer, and the in-between. So Purandara is essentially a destroyer of boundaries and limitations, demonstrating our own infinitely expansive true inner identity. And a dāsā is a helper or tool. So we don't just stop with Purandara. We say purandara-dāsā. That's the name of the composer that we are interested in today. So dāsā is a helper or a tool, never to be put down. They're so very important and inevitable, in fact. And a dāsā is a helper or tool to such an unveiler of our unbounded reality. Purandara is the unveiler of our unbounded reality, and in that process, somebody who helps is a dāsā, as a helper, a tool, like Purandara-dāsā, Kannadā, and so many other Haridasas who lived during that period. So Purandara-dāsā is symbolic of our own gross physical body, which, if understood clearly, using a user's manual if possible, taken care of well according to what we understood clearly, and then used effectively for the short time that it lasts. This body is temporary, but as long as it lasts, if you understand it clearly, take care of it well by giving it the right kind of diet and sleep and all other things, exercise, etc. that it requires, and then you use it effectively during that short period that it is available for us, then this very physical body, Purandara-dāsā, can be an effective tool to help recognize our limitless universal identity. Purandara-dāsā's journey, interestingly and non-coincidentally, by the way, began as Srinivasa. Yes, that was his original name. In fact, Srinivasa-nayaka. What does Srinivasa mean? Again, we break it up into two parts, Sri and Nivasa. Srinivasa, as most of you know, means one who resides in prosperity, or vice versa. Prosperity resides in that person whose name is Srinivasa. Or colloquially, Purandara-dāsā, before his getting into composing, etc., the divine work that he was destined for, was originally called colloquially as Chinappa-nayaka. And his journey on this planet Earth began in 1484. Before that, he was none other than Brahmaputra Narada Maharishi. So it was an avatar, but unknown to himself until he was around 40. He started his journey in 1484, very interestingly, at Kshemapura. Kshema means well-being. So a city of well-being. So obviously, he was born to a diamond merchant and very rich, inheriting his father's diamond business and jewelry business when he was just 20 years old. In fact, he developed it so much that he was the richest man in the Vijayanagara Empire, probably richer than Krsnā, the king himself. In fact, he went on to be nicknamed as Navakoti Narayana for his 9 crore gold coins in those times. But he was not satisfied. He was a greedy, miserly man. He wanted to become Dashakoti Damodara. Equally interestingly, his monogamous spouse is known to various so-called historians as Lakshmi as well as Saraswati, two schools of history. The inner truth being that the spouse for every one of us, whether married or not, represents one's own mind, with our subtle body being the most intimate life partner to our gross body, the physical body. And in Purandara-dāsā's case, there was a transition in his mental preoccupation from wealth to wisdom. Karagre vasate Lakshmi karamadye Saraswati. The transition happened from the fingers to the middle of the palm. So, Saraswati, the inner truth being that the spouse for all of us represents our own mind, with our subtle being the most intimate life partner to our gross body. And in Purandara-dāsā's case, there was a transition, as I said. in his mental preoccupation from wealth to wisdom, Lakshmi to Saraswati. No wonder that some historians call his wife as Lakshmi and some others as Saraswati. The ambiguity of his spouse's name actually embodies the beautiful mental transformation and evolution of his initial fetish for Lakshmi in its very crude form of wealth. Because wealth can have very different perspectives too. Knowledge can be wealth too. But then it becomes Saraswati. To absorption in Saraswati, a fetish for Lakshmi. Pre-40, post-40, an absorption in Saraswati. Essentially, different aspects, Lakshmi and Saraswati, essentially different aspects or perceptions of the same entity, single entity called energy or Shakti. Saraswati, Lakshmi. Saraswati at the Vishuddhi, Lakshmi at the Anahata. When they evolve, they further become Shakti or Parvati, Kali, Durga. Coming to the song itself, pāndu-rangā, we need to recognize the differences between two words, oft used interchangeably, daya and karuna. You think it's the same? Well, most people do. Both find apt places in today's songs. You will see these words coming up, karuna and daya. You would have already heard in VasanthiMā singing, but I will tell the lyrics to you once again in terms of its meaning. So we want to understand the difference between laya and Shruti, which is the mother and the father. We already did that. Now we want to understand the difference between daya and karuna. No, they are not mother and father. Let's begin with daya. Though by itself a great quality, far better than the Western concepts of tolerance or ruth. Many people haven't heard the word ruth, but they have heard the word ruthless, which is opposite of ruth. Yes, ruth also means something like tolerance. Ruthless means a dictatorial stuff like Hitler or Idi Amin, Lenin, Stalin. So Western concepts of tolerance and ruth, compared to that, daya is a great quality. But in the Indian context, there's something even better. Because daya is still mere mercy, pity, or kindness on another living being, so-called another living being. While karuna is one step further in the human evolutionary scale, meaning empathy or compassion, which is the peak of love rather than the depth of pity. Karuna is in fact an inner experience of utmost pleasantness in our emotional mind, not even requiring another person or another living being as a catalyst to induce compassion. In fact, true compassion can only arise by including one and all within us. So then there is no other. And thus seeing the higher truth that there is nothing or no one else other than I myself. And that feeling that you get in such a situation of all inclusivity, sabka saath, sabka vikas, sabka vishwas, then that particular condition is the real karuna, compassion. So what VasanthiMā first sang was the carnātic sangeet, simple form called gītam. Very short and sweet, but power-packed, as I said earlier. It starts with kamala-ja-dala, It's in Ragam Kalyani, as I said in the 65th Melakarta, Mecha Kalyani. The Swarasthanaha is Shadjam, Chatushruti Vrishabam, Antara Gandharam, Priti Madhyamam, Panchamam, Chatushruti Dhaivatam, Kakali Nishadam. The Talam is Tistra Jati Triputa Talam. The Angaha for the Talam is one Lagu of 3 kalas, one Dhritam of 2 kalas, and one Dhritam again of 2 kalas. The Rupakarta, as you know, is Purandara-dāsā, which means the helper of the destroyer of boundaries, the one who helps or in our own destruction of boundaries and limits which are imaginary anyway. That is our physical body. And the Bhasha is Sanskritam. Very rare, but in fact Purandara-dāsā has composed quite a few, not only in Kannada but Sanskrit as well. But the more popular ones unfortunately or fortunately happen to be the Kannada ones, which most people understand. So in that way it is fortunate. But there's a lot of treasure, depth in the Sanskrit ones, which unfortunately are not sung as much. So I'm very thankful for VasanthiMā's choice of one Sanskrit and one Kannada to give a variety even in the same composer, Purandara-dāsā, and one gītam and the other is a kriti. The Sahityam for this goes kamala-ja-dala vimala sunayana karivarada karunambuja hare. Kamala-ja-dala. Kamala, again, the lotus is coming back to us. But this time ja-dala. That means born, and dala is basically petal. The petal born out of a lotus. See, the lotus is born out of pretty much dirt. And then out of it is born a petal. That kamala-ja-dala vimala means special kind of mala. The kamala has grown out of special kind of dirt. Vimala, many people just translate it as pure, but it is vishesha mala. It's a special kind of dirt. Sunayana, that means beautiful eyes. Karivarada, that means somebody who blessed an elephant. Kari is an elephant. Varada is giving a boon to that. That is Gajendra, the king of the elephants. But what does that represent? Our own intellect. Yes, that is Gajendra. And what does Gajendra Moksha mean? Our intellect crying to our own soul. That is to me saying that I have got caught with a makara. That means rigidity. Intellect always gets into logic, analytics. And then, yes, it helps us to go to a certain level in certain things. But if you overuse it, it gets caught in rigidity. That is the crocodile. When the intellect gets caught, then it cannot escape by itself. No, it has to call to me. And that is the Atma. And the Atma can come and redeem the intellect, the elephant Gajendra, from the clutches of rigidity, stagnation that crocodiles are known for. Very different from stillness, by the way. I'm coming to that, which is a very beneficial quality to have. Stagnation and stillness are not the same, by the way, friends. That's for a little later. Karunambude means an ocean of compassion. Just now we saw how much more beautiful Karuna is over Daya. Daya will come in the other song. Daya mādo-rangā, pity. But here we are talking of the Atma. And what are we saying to that colorful Atma out there? We are saying Karunambude. It's an ocean of compassion. Hare, which steals everything else because nothing else really exists. It's all Maya, illusion. The only thing which exists is I, the Atma. And then It's not just Karunambude. In the second line of this very gītam, it says Karuna Jalade. Again, we are talking of compassion, overflowing Jalade. Kamala-kanta. That means a magnet to the lotus. Many people just translate it as husband of Lakshmi. Well, that is in one way. Okay. But Kamala-kanta Kanta is a magnet. Remember, Kamala or the lotus is even hydrophobic. In other words, it just repels anything. It doesn't get attached to anything. It's full of vairagya, dispassion. But if there is something which can attract even a Kamala, that is the Atma. And that's what we are referring to as Kamala-kanta, the Atma, which can attract even a lotus, which otherwise is so detached. Kesi Narakasura Vibhedana. Again, many people will just translate it as Kesi and Narakasura were two asuras, and Krsnā came and killed them. So we are telling Kesi Narakasura Vibhedana, destroyer. Oh, there's so much beautiful here. Kesi and Narakasura represent heaven and hell in different forms, which are just states of our mind, and Vibhedana, who makes a difference between them before specializing and destroying them, eliminating them by dissolving one into the other, because there's no such thing as heaven and hell, my friends. They're all made up by the imagination of our own minds. So Kesi Narakasura Vibhedana means one who dissolves all of this into nothingness. So Varada Vela Surapurottama. Varada gives boons, because once you've included everything into yourself, what else can you do but give? Varada. And Vela Surapurottama. It's again referring to our everythingness. Sura being our Rajasic gunas, and Surapura is where the Rajasic gunas reside, our mind, and Uttama, the best in that. So the best of our passions, Varada Vela, Karuna Sharade, not Sharade, but Sharade. What is Karuna Sharade? Means a flow, a monsoon, a rain of compassion. We talked of an ocean of compassion earlier, a flow of compassion earlier. We now are talking about a shower of compassion too. And again we say Kamala-kanta. That's how we end this very short gītam. The second song which VasanthiMā sang for us differs in laya. There is the thala. It's now adi, the very common thalam. And here we have a pallavi and 3 charanams. In the pallavi we say, and we means pānduranga. No, pānduranga is the pen name, pānduranga or purandara vitthalā. But purandara-dāsā is singing this. And who I said is purandara-dāsā? Our physical body. So what is our physical body pleading? Daya mādo, ranga. It's pleading. So ranga is what? It's a stage. I'll come to it. It's a stage. It's a place of assembly of colors. Haven't I talked to you about that already? With a rainbow going back to its source. So to that ranga, which is our very life, stage, theatre, where one becomes many and many becomes back one, as the curtains open and close for this life, which is what we call as birth and death, just between 2 acts, going back to the source again and again. So we are, not we, our physical body or purandara-dāsā is begging to Ranga, the life stage, the theater of life. Have pity on me, not compassion, not karuna, but daya mādo. Have pity on me, daya mādo Ranga. Daya mādo ninna dāsanu nanendu. What do you want? Pity. To become a slave or a helper or a tool to you. So the physical body, once it realizes its temporary nature and its purpose, will not go on asking for its own likings. Sometimes we say, I will do what I like. But actually, is it what you like? What the Atma likes? No. It's what the body likes or the mind likes, or even worse, what the sense organs like. So, here we are talking about the body begging to the Atma, the life stage itself, make me your helper, make me your tool. What a beautiful state to reach when the body by itself asks that to the Atma. That's the secret of this song. It might look very simple when taken literally, and you think of some Ranga somewhere far away, either in a temple or in Vaikunta. Great, it helps you in some way. But it can help you in much, much deeper way to achieve the goal of your life, which is liberation from this cycle of birth and death again and again, going back to your kindergartens and learning your ABCD and your nursery rhymes of Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, had a great fall. It threw away the baby and all. Jack and Jill went up the hill and came rolling down. All these kinds of things you want to do again and again? No way. And that's where the body has to ask for pity from the Atma to get it out of this cycle. So in the Charanam, what does he say? Or what does my physical body say to the Atma? Halavu kaladim ninna hambala yenage. That means I've been yearning for you for ages. Halavu kaladim, for many, many seasons and ages and lifetimes. I've been yearning, hambala, ninna hambala, yearning for you, yenage, for me. So the physical body has been yearning for this liberation, for this life stage, to get rid of the cycle of births and deaths. Olidu palisa, olida palisa beku, varijanabha. Again the lotus is coming up, varija, that which is ja and vari, or varabadi, which is basically again dirt. That born out of dirt is, and the one whose navel is that. We already saw. For Vishnu, the eyes are navel, which means his future is detached. His face is a lotus, which means that the present is like detached. And then where we were connected to with the umbilical cord to our source, the mother, that navel is also lotus. That means the past is also detached. So memory doesn't create a problem. So no worries. Future or imagination doesn't create a problem. So no anxiety. And the present doesn't create a problem. So you're successful. What more can you ask for? So he says, Olidu palisa beku varijanaba. So you have to appear. The Atma doesn't appear. But the body is requesting, Olidu palisa beku. That means appear at least to the inner eye, to the intuition. Olidu palisa beku. Protect me. The body needs protection. And that internal security can be guaranteed only by I, the Atma. I can't outsource these things. We have for long been outsourcing things. Outsourcing works for certain things as certain economies have shown. But we learned the hard way with the British East India Company when we outsourced a lot of things and lost $45 trillion. And we are still trying to become a $5 trillion economy. We need to learn from all these things. And the internal security can be provided by I alone. And that is the Atma alone. And that's why we are asking for Palisabeku, protect. Not only appear, Olidu, but Palisabeku as well. Varijanaba, the one who is detached from the past. Then the second charanam goes, Ihapara geti nine. That means the speed and the target of here and the later. That is Iha and Para. The here and the beyond. The targets of both this life and the future lives is only one. You, the Atma, the Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. Then we go on to say Indira Ramana. I'll come back to what Indira means really, but most people think of him as the king of the demigods. Well, good luck to them. Ramana is a charmer, the one who charmed Indra. So I'll come back to what Indra is later. It needs a little more thought. Sahaya ninnade sarvada tori karuna. That means help is from you. Always show it to me out of your compassion. That's how this second charana ends. In other words, the physical body is asking for help from the Atma, that is I myself, or forever, Sarvada, to show that help through compassion. And then the last charanam, the third one, he goes, Kariraja Varadane. He brings the same concept that he had in the Gītam. So here, the physical body or Purandara-dāsā is pleading to this life stage, Ranga. Kariraja Varadane, O life stage, you protected the intellect, which is the king of elephants, the largest brainwala. Varadane, you gave him a boon. Kamita phalada. That means whatever desire is there, you bestow that fruit, that boon. Purandara vittalane. Purandara, again we saw it already. The destroyer of cities, but actual meaning, the one who recognizes that there are no boundaries or limits, they are only imaginary, and therefore lets them all burn up in the wind. That Purandara vittalane, vittalane, I'll come to you shortly, because again, just like Indra, it requires a little more thought. Hari Sarvabhauma. Hari means one who steals. The Atma is one who steals all these imaginary things like the gross body, subtle body, causal body, which basically mean the physical body, the mind, the intellect, etc. And Sarvabhauma, what is that? It's an adjective meaning global. Sarva, everything. Bhauma, the world, everything in the world. Global. Global concept was there long back. Global means, or Sarvabhauma means all-inclusive, concerning or including the whole world. Again, sabka saath, sabka vikas, sabka vishwas. Next, for Indra's etymology, I had made you wait for so long, so I should tell you that. Let us turn to not my own experiential things, because that's what I usually share, is my own experiential what can I say? Truth, reality that I experience in my own meditations. But for a change, let me fall back on the scriptures as far as Indra is concerned, because I've never experienced him in any of my meditations. So let me turn to the Shatapata Brahmana, where the root for Indra is mentioned as Inda or igniter, like in a lightning. basically a reference to the leader of our own pack of passionate or rajasic gunas. This I have experienced, that the devas are none other than our own rajasic gunas. And who is Indra? The king of them. So rajasic gunas in general are devas. And its ability in particular to bring light and power, that is indriyas, our senses, that ignite the vital forces of life, prana. Not just the breath, but the very life force. That's the real Indra. Of course, this is with this Shatapata Brahmana. The Vedas don't end with the Brahmanas. They go on to the Vedanta, end of the Vedas, Upanishad. And one of them is the Aitreya Upanishad, which gives an even more deeper meaning. So the Aitreya Upanishad goes further deeper, as anticipated of any Upanishad, claiming that the refined Indra's root is idam-dra, or it seeing. Idam means it, and dra means drushti, seeing, which actually is a reference to the one who perceives the self-sufficient metaphysical Brahman. The self-sufficient metaphysical Brahman is perceived by who other than Brahman himself in the form of Atman. So, it's a reference to us alone. That is Indra. That's according to the Aitreya Upanishad. Finally, we need to look at the word vitthalā, because that's a very important concept, and associated with that, of course, pāndu-rangā, because I started this whole session with pāndu-rangā vitthalā, pāndu-rangā vitthalā. So let's understand a little bit of that, because this is something which will occur again and again in all of Purandara-dāsā's songs. The word vitthalā is composed of two Sanskrit Marathi words. Marathi, like most other Indian languages, derived from Sanskrit, so obviously there has to be a similarity. So even a small word like vitthalā can be broken up into two parts, vit and thal. So vit means brick and thal means sthala, which means a particular place or standing in a particular place. Many of you might have heard of the story of one great devotee who made Vishnu, or the universal consciousness, to stand on a piece of brick. But what's a brick? Many people think of it as a piece of earth. Yes, there is earth in it. But how is a brick made? It's mixed with water. There are pores in it, having air, and then it is burnt to make it strong and rigid. That's basically, that baking process gives it fire, energy. And then of course it occupies space. So you see where it's heading towards? Panchabhuta. All of the Panchabhutas are compactly contained within that beautiful piece, a cuboid called a brick. And it's on that the universal consciousness, Vitthalā, stood. So, vit means break, and thala means standing on the brick. So thus Vitthalā would mean one who is standing on a brick. So the prescribed iconography of Vithoba stipulates that he be shown standing arms akimbo. That means balance. See, one is stillness, standing on a small piece of brick, a big man. Universal consciousness, you think is a small man? Standing on a piece of brick. That's all that we require in a lifetime. Amount of Panchabhuta that we need to absorb is very, very little compared to what there is. As Mahatma Gandhi used to say, there is enough for every man's need on this planet, and will be the future too. But there's not enough even for one man's greed. And that's exactly what is shown over here. So, Apart from stillness, which is very, very important, as opposed to stagnancy, stillness of the body, stillness of the mind, only then the intellect will work at its peak. And then when you still the intellect also, like Gajendra Moksha, the Atma will take off towards liberation or moksha. But in all of this, not only stillness is required, but balance also. Because without balance, you'll be unstable and therefore can't remain still for long. So, the hands on the hips, arms akimbo upon a brick, which is associated with the legend of the devotee, as I said, his name was Pundalik. However, the Varkari poet saint Tukaram, oh, I love his works, proposed a different etymology. By the way, one of my students, Prashant Pawar, a professor at a university in Pandharpur, oh, so lucky. He is working on a series of English translations of many abhangs of many great Marathi poets. So I urge you to look at that. You can search for Prashant Pawar and you should be able to get on Facebook or in many of the social media. So Tukaram proposed a different etymology for vitthalā. That vitthalā is composed of the words vitta, ignorance, and la, one who accepts. Not one who accepts ignorance, but one who accepts even the ignorant. Thus meaning one who accepts innocent people who are devoid of knowledge. They've just not had the opportunity to be blessed with knowledge, or just that their intellectual capacities have not been developed enough to absorb knowledge. It doesn't matter. As long as they maintain their innocence, which is very rare in many of the intelligent people, which is why they become shrewd. So that combination of innocence and intelligence simultaneously in the same person at the same time is what is very important, and that's something we need to look at. So that's why Tukaram says that vitthalā means one who accepts innocent people who are devoid of knowledge. There's another historian by the name Ramakrishna Gopal Bhandarkar, a Marathi historian, who offers yet another possibility for etymology for vitthalā. That vittu is a Kannada corruption of the name Vishnu adopted in Marathi. So Vishnu means universal. So vitthalā or vittu also means universal, just that it's made kind of endearing in the local languages of Kannada and Marathi. So the suffixes la, like in vitthalā or vitobha, the bha, these mean father. We say Sai Baba. Ai is mother, Ba is father. So Sai Baba is both mother and father. But here we use la or ba. In fact, we use the mother kind of notation also in some Marathi clans. We'll look at that shortly. But when you say vitthalā or vitobha, it means father. You are appended for just reverence because you respect your father. So producing the names vitthalā and vitobha to one who is kind or compassionate, more importantly, towards even the so-called ignorant, because of their innocence, which is a much more important quality to have and retain. So this corruption of Vishnu to Vittu could have been due to the tendency of Marathi and Kannada people to pronounce the Sanskrit shna in Vishnu as t, as in Vitthala or Vittu, attested since the 8th century. And finally, I want to look at Pundalik. So Pundalik, what do we mean by that? Because that's going to be the person who brought Vitthala concept to us, a great devotee, who's assumed to be an historical figure, was instrumental in persuading not only Vishnu to stay there on the brick, the universal consciousness to occupy such a small place like he did in the Vamana avatar to start with. It's the opposite of that. There he grew from being a dwarf to covering the entire universe in 3 steps. But here, this devotee Pundalik has made the universal consciousness stand on a single, simple, small brick. He was not only instrumental in doing that to Vishnu, but also he did something with the king. That time it was a major empire, Vijayanagar Empire, ruling almost the entire South India. So he was instrumental in persuading the Hoysala king Vishnuvardhana, who was also known as Bittidev, to build the Pandharpur temple dedicated to Vishnu, where the Pandharpur temple exists even today. The deity was subsequently named as vitthalā, a derivative of Bittidev, the king's name, by the builder king himself. So other variants of the name include Vitturāya, which means Raya means king, like in Vyasaraya or Vyāsatīrthā, the guru of Purandara-dāsā. And Vittai, as I said, not Mitai, but Vittai. And Ai here means mother in Marathi. So referring to that same concept of wit as a mother as well. And of course the people of Gujarat, they go a further step in their respect. Add the suffix nath or lord to Vitthalā, and they call him Vittalnath. And even further, they don't stop with just the Lord. They had an additional honorific suffix G, even to ordinary people. Of course, they would to God or Atma or Brahman, the concept. Adding that G gives the name Vittalnath Ji. This name is generally used in the Pushti Maharaj sect. So Pāndu-rangā finally is another popular epithet for Vithoba. I already told you, it is white to the color, multicolor, and back to white. Whether white is a source or sink, I have left it to you as an exercise assignment to think, because that's very important concept in Advaita. To have a meditation on what is white, what is black, what is Shiva, what is Vishnu, how they become one and the same. So Pāndu-rangā is another popular epithet for Vithoba, which means Pandu is white, Ranga is color. So the white colored god. It's a literal translation. So the 11th century Jain author Saint Hemachandra notes that the black god or blue god is Krishna or Vishnu, Rama. But the white god was always Shiva. It was used as an epithet for Rudra. Even though Vithoba is depicted with dark complexion, he is called a white god. So the historian Bhandarkar explains this paradox and proposes that Pāndu-rangā may be actually an epithet for the form of Shiva, that which is not, and therefore white, worshipped in Pandharpur, and whose temple still stands in Pandharpur. Just like there is a Chandramauleshwar temple in Udupi, there is a Shiva, important, ancient temple of Shiva in Pandharpur too. That temple still stands. So later, with the increasing popularity of Vithoba's cult, this was also transferred to Vithoba. How does it matter? They're all one and the same. Another theory suggests that Vithoba may initially have been a Shaiva symbol, only later identified with Vishnu, thus explaining the use of Pāndu-rangā for Vithoba. Whatever these scholarly interpretations may be, we are people on the path, sadhaks, doing our sadhana. For us, the intimate and inner truth is what we perceive within ourselves, in our chakras, in our subtle body, through the spinal cord. There we end up seeing the deep connect of Vishnu or our own everythingness in our own Anahata chakra of the heart with Shiva or our own nothingness in our Sahasrara chakra, and the effortless mutual transformation between them, because what are the two things in between? They are the Vishuddhi of Saraswati and the Agnya of Kalika Durga Parameshwari, the energy which transforms Vishnu to Shiva and Shiva back to Vishnu with every inhalation and exhalation, inhalation and exhalation. This is all the time happening. So, vitthalā, vitthalā, pānduranga, vitthalā, 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 pandurinadā, vitthalā. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya. Om Namah Parvati Pataye. Har Har Mahadev. There are great songs that Purandara-dāsā has sung on Ganesha and Shiva too. That for another day. So thanks to all of you viewers and to VasanthiMā too. Namo Namah. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.